Happy Friday, everyone. It's Friday, February 10th, 2023, and it's time for my weekly rant about what's going on in the world of crypto. First, the markets. Pretty boring up until the day before yesterday, when the Bitcoin market and a lot of crypto went down on the heels of various and sundry SEC and regulatory actions. The market's down about 6 or 7% from last week, still well within the trading range that it has been carved out, still bumping along in this channel where, kind of bounded between, the 18,000s and the 22,000s. We were a little bit higher than that. I think the top end of the channel, as I've said before, is the 200-week moving average, which is still sitting at around 24.5 or thereabouts, a little bit lower now. But that really is not a whole lot of action in terms of what's going on. What really matters, however, is what seems to be a coordinated attack against crypto. And before I talk about that attack, I want to be really clear about what's going on. So Nick Carter talked about a new operation, Chokepoint, and he specifically looked at what the Fed has done, what the OCC has done in terms of persuading banks to avoid crypto firms, and people are looping in the SEC, etc. But I want to make it clear that what's actually happening in addition to the regulators is there's a major propaganda war going on. And it's been going on for a while, but it's really easy to see that in what we've seen around the SEC's most recent action. But to define it, let's look at what does Wikipedia say is the definition of propaganda. And I'm reading from here. Someone named Renee Hobbs identified 4 design features of most forms of contemporary propaganda. Number 1, it activates strong emotions. Well, people losing money in FTX and having their livelihoods gone, losing money in Voyager, people having life savings wiped out in Voyager and Celsius, that activates strong emotions. Number 2, it simplifies information. Here's the key. You say, oh my God, people took risk with your money and it's bad. We're going to protect you, without saying that the cure might be worse than the disease. That's simplifying information. We'll get more into that in a second. Third, it appeals to the hopes, fears, and dreams of the targeted audiences. Well, of course, it's what it's doing. The target audience wants to believe they're being protected. They want to believe that there's a reason that their protectors are doing the right thing. And so they're trying to give this veneer of that when actually doing the opposite. And 4, it attacks opponents. It's always specific to people that threaten them. Now, let's understand, what is the battle? The battle is between traditional financial rails and what's been going on in the legacy financial system, which is characterized by oligopolistic control from banks. Now, look, I worked for 2 of the larger ones over the course of my career for over 2 decades. I'm not saying this in a vacuum. They're not all bad people. But the fact of the matter is, our economic system is controlled by a significant elite group of banks, which own the securities lending business, which own the prime brokerage business, which basically control access to payments. And this is all orchestrated in a very collaborative way, is probably the nicest way I can say it, with legislators and regulators. And there are people who believe that this is the thing that needs to be broken to create economic freedom. There are over 2 billion people unbanked in this world. And there are lots of people who are kind of on the fringes of the financial system, even in the United States. Use of payday loans, for example, which is borderline usurious, can be eliminated with a lot of the technology and work that's going on in the world of crypto. And there's many other examples of that. So there is a battle. Let's call it what it is. So let's talk about this week. And let's talk specifically about what Gary Gensler has said about his action against Kraken. So the fact is, they sued Kraken. They're fining them $30 million. They're claiming they should have been registered and they should shut down their staking program. Now, before I talk about the date, about what actually the SEC said and what Mr. Gensler said, let's understand what's at stake here. The fact is, what is at stake with staking in these networks is the ability to bootstrap an open source movement, to be able to create value in a token that can be given to developers who will build on a network. What is at stake is the ability to create a decentralized network that doesn't require individual large third parties controlling it, but instead be controlled by third party nodes. Now, Mr. Gensler is not directly attacking that. In fact, to his credit, he specifically talks about not your keys, not your coins, which honestly is something that I personally tend to agree with. But there are millions, in fact, probably tens of millions of people who are not of the technological sophistication nor have the wealth to amass enough coins to be able to create their own node and stake themselves. So the question is, should networks be allowed to take advantage of bootstrapping by allowing intermediaries like crypto exchanges to be able to do so on an agent basis on behalf of customers? Well, the answer is obviously yes. But he's basically stopping that in the US and forcing it offshore. So let's talk about what did he say? And when you actually watch the interview with Andrew Ross Sorkin this morning on CNBC, which I did, I found myself nodding and agreeing with a lot of what Gary said because he is right and it's something that viewers of this show know. We absolutely, and to get his point, he said specifically, risk must be disclosed fully and fairly. Well, if you've been listening to me for any length of time, you know I've been saying exactly the same thing. I use the example with Voyager, for example, that if they told their customers they're doing agent lending of their crypto and just taking a VIG in the middle and giving the customers most of the benefit, and then customers left their money there, and then they said, well, I can't make money doing this anymore. So I'm going to take your same crypto and I'm going to make an uncollateralized loan of $700 million to a hedge fund in Asia and do so by we've heard recently this week there have been interviews. Kyle Davies says that Steve Ehrlich called him. So not disclosing that is, I think, criminal. And it would be great if there were rules that were set up to stop that. In the case of Kraken, there's no allegation of harm in the release that I've seen. And as Hester Peirce pointed out in her dissent, there's no path to do what was requested. So when you say I want to see full and fair disclosures, and you should, quote, come on in and get registered. One would think reading that, well, you could just, if you were Kraken, you could call them up and say, hey, let's have a meeting. We want to register. We'll agree what we need to do. We'll tick the boxes. We'll fill out the forms. We'll pay the registration fee, and we'll keep going. That's not on the table. What Gary is talking about is come on in. We will fine you. We will enforce against you. We will then, as a carrot, give you a no action letter based upon criteria that is only unique to your circumstance. And then the next person has to do the same thing, and the next person, the next person. That's how you get a cartel. That's not how you break cartels. The way you break cartels is saying, let's write rules in the light of day with public to comment on it, the industry to comment on it. We now have a path for registration and rules where crypto exchanges can operate in the market structure that is unique to crypto, which has major advantages, many of which I've talked about much of the time. We will then have a clear way of going forward. And then if firms do not use that way going forward to register, then by all means fine them. Then by all means prosecute them. But give them a chance first. That's what's been missing. That's why we have the continual dissent from SEC rulings by the inestimable Hester Peirce, who continues to outdo herself in writing about this. But the truth is, what she's saying and what I'm saying boils down to a simple point. Let's write rules that protect investors, preserve innovation, and allow the industry to continue to work to make the financial system accessible to all. That is not what's happening. That's what should happen. And everybody watching this, please please subscribe, and let's get this moving, because that is what the people in Congress, particularly the Financial Committee, needs to hear. I know Representative Emmers has said many of these things himself, but this is really getting to be very important. This is becoming a political issue, and we really need to make our voices heard. So with that rant over, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe out there. Until next time.